And welcome into the Tuesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Tuesday morning. Preds in action tonight, taking on the New York Rangers. Puck drop 7 o'clock, pregame 6 o'clock. Peter Laviolette back in town. Not going so hot for him either.
Rangers might leave him here.
They might. Peter, you're very familiar with the city of Nashville. Have fun.
Would you like to stay?
We'll see you
for
later.
the holidays.
We'll have Preds Pick the Click coming up a little bit later in the program. John Glennon for the Nashville Post will be with us at 8 o'clock. Rexrode, how we doing? What's going on?
Doing all right. Let's see. It's finals week. It's college football playoff week. And lost in fantasy football in the Robby and Rexrode Fantasy League. We're all out. Congrats to the semifinalists. I'm very happy that Kuharski's not one of them. You told me I'm playing Kuharski in the 5th place game this week.
That is correct.
All right, man. That's big.
That's a big game.
That's big. Got to get that 5th place. So we're looking at what? Kyle. Do you remember?
Daniel.
Jack.
And I'm trying to remember the bracket off the top of my head. Let me pull it up real quick.
Is it DJ?
It is not DJ. It is Jason Hull, who's been in first place all year.
So one of you will get the incredible prize of being able to be in this league again next year. What an absolute. We're gonna add something to that, right?
We'll see.
maybe
it's not up to me.
Maybe that's what the loser of our Pigskin Pick'em should buy that.
Well, maybe so.
I don't know. Just a thought.
It may be something we have to do. As Rexrode brings up ideas for losers of Pigskin Pick'em while I'm in last place.
I mean, or maybe
all right, I got
the winner.
I got the Art of Sport Bowl and the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl coming up. I'll be fine. Still games left to be played this week.
Those are big for you.
No doubt about it. We got a lot to get into on the program today. We'll get into Tennessee and Ohio State coming up in the college football playoff a little bit later in the program. Is John Robinson going to end up with the New York Jets? We'll get into that a little bit later in the program as well. We begin with Brian Callahan and reaction to some of his comments yesterday at his weekly Monday press conference. So we knew heading into the press conference yesterday, Joe, that the story of the day was going to be Will Levis, the benching that took place on Sunday, and what the plan was at quarterback for the Titans as they move forward this week to take on the Indianapolis Colts. And right out of the gate, Brian Callahan was asked about the plan at quarterback and the decision that is forthcoming as to whether or not Will Levis will be the starting quarterback. Here's what Brian Callahan had to say to begin his press conference yesterday.
We'll go through your thought process and determine maybe where to go from here at the quarterback position and what kind of time frame do you think you'll.
Yeah, I think, I'm going to use the next 2 days to go through that process and make sure that, the decision we make is the best one for our football team, and not really much to add to it at this point. And that's something we can visit with later in the week. So take the time here that I have to go through it all and make sure, we're doing the right thing.
So how's Callahan? Not willing to name a starter at quarterback for this week, Joe. Did not commit one way or the other to Will Levis or Mason Rudolph. Said he was going to take the next couple of days and make the best decision for the football team. What'd you make of that from Brian Callahan yesterday?
Well, I know we're going to get into other stuff too, but yeah, I think that I come away with the same conclusion that I think you do, which is it all adds up to me. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Mariota Tannehill thing, which is a totally different thing, of course. But at that point, you're at the end of the rope with Mariota. You're trying to save a season. You have a very, viable option afterward. They took some days that week after the Denver game. They ended up going to Tannehill. I mean, it seems to be adding up to Mason Rudolph and taking over, which. If that's the case, and then you get into, I guess you have to wait to see if that is the case. But if that is the case, man, it's hard to buy like Levis as a serious option for them.
Yeah,
after the season.
Yeah, like if that's the case, and that's the route they decide to go, it kind of feels like the Will Levis era here is over. Now, he could be on the roster next year. Probably will be on the roster next year, but it feels like him as a viable option for a starting quarterback moving forward he's over. That's just the kind of the way it feels to me at this point. And Callahan had some more comments that kind of, I think, foreshadow what could be coming here that I thought were pretty interesting. He talked about holding players to the same standard. Here's what Brian Callahan had to say on that front yesterday.
If you were to go with the other, do you feel the other guys in the locker room have lost confidence in Will being able to win?
And I don't feel that way right now. No, I don't think that that's the case. I just think that, when you make mistakes, plenty of guys on our roster throughout the course of the season have they're just held to a certain standard, and you want to make sure that standard is consistent enough across the board at all positions. So just got to make sure that that's the standard we follow, and that at the end of the day, if you're in position to make plays and you don't make them, or we have errors that cost us games, those all count the same. I think across the board. So those are the things that I have to look at to make sure that we're doing right by everybody involved.
So he talked about that in kind of several different fronts yesterday in terms of holding players to the same standard. He brought up like linebacker. They've made some changes at that regard. Obviously, right tackle. They've made some changes based off performance and the certain standard that they have, and wanting to make sure that is maintained throughout the lineup, including at the quarterback position. And Joe, I'll be honest, when he started talking about that kind of told me without telling me that they're making a change this week at quarterback. He didn't outright say it, but when you start diving into that realm, I don't think you're coming back from that if you're Callahan.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I'd guess the same thing. And I really don't agree with what he's saying. I mean, like it's a great idea. All anybody across the board defensive linemen rotate in and out. Like positions are different, So quarterback is different. It just is. And especially when, as we all know, as he's talked about a million times, when you have the young quarterback in the second year who you're trying to develop, you expect to have mistakes. Like this idea of sorry, you're out of there. You have to sit down for that one. He made a mistake. You make a mistake. Sit down. It's not the same thing at all. So to me, it's almost like spin to get everybody ready for what they're really saying, which is, we just don't think Will's got it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like it is different. Now, I will say, like, right tackle, the example you bring up there, like if you find a functional right tackle, you're not rotating the right tackle. So
sure.
Like it is position by position different. A quarterback, just bottom line in general, is different than any other position you want to throw out there in football. It just is. So I agree with you. Like I think there could be some spin zone going on there, because the other part of this is, like, we've seen Mason Rudolph play this year. It's not like it's exactly like the standard has been elevated to some unreachable level with Mason Rudolph at quarterback this year. So I believe this is Brian Callahan telling you, without explicitly telling you, that he's out on Will Levis. That's what this is to me.
I agree. If that's now, of course, we're going to say this, and then it's like, it's Will. And they're like, oh, okay.
I'll put it this way. If he comes out on Wednesday and says it's Will Levis as the starting quarterback, I will be very surprised at this point.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, like, I will run into traffic wearing a chicken uniform.
I will not do that.
Okay. All right.
But I will, like, that one yesterday, that press conference, to me, almost left like no room for doubt that it's not going to be Levis moving forward.
Yeah, it definitely sounded like preparing everyone for Levis. And again, of course, there's a lot of positions they don't rotate, but I'm just saying, like, it's different, especially with the young quarterback. And also, we talked earlier in the year when I think it matters more in terms of, if the guys in the locker room think that you're screwing them over with a chance to win games by playing, at some point you have to take that into account. And they're 3-11 with 3 games left. To me now, we're at the point where, look, everybody's got to be a pro in that building, and they're you got film and you got meetings and you got all the things, and you're trying to win a football game, but I don't think that really matters much anymore. So to me, it all adds up to, if you do this, you're saying something bigger. He's going to say on Wednesday, if they decide to do this, no, this doesn't mean that. I'm not buying it at all.
No, because look, he also said a couple of questions yesterday that, those are more like postseason questions, like after the season, getting into like the future of some of that stuff. So, like, he's obviously not willing to go down that road yet in terms of, let me just lay out the entire future plan at quarterback and my thoughts on all that yet. Now, is that going to come at the end of the year? If he still, has his job at the end of the year, then yeah, then you'll probably start to hear some of that at that point. But I don't expect Brian Callahan on Wednesday, even if he's naming Mason Rudolph the starting quarterback for the rest of the way, to just be like, well, we wish Will the best of luck in the offseason, and we look forward to the draft trying to come up with another solution at quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, yeah, and there's going to be, and look, some of this it's spin, but like I do in general subscribe to it. He'll say, yeah, like the nothing is final thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's true. Levis is going to be in this league, and at some point they get another opportunity, and who knows, he may run with it in 3 years somewhere else. Koharski has already, prophesied this for Will Levis. So nothing's final, but here it feels like we're heading toward that, and I can't argue against it. So here's the thing: I saw from a lot of Titans fans, or I've heard the same general thing, which is if this entire thing comes back next year, like I can't do it. I'm out. Well, if the owner is not going to get rid of the front office and coach, there's only one other thing you can do to tell people the new era. We got something new next year.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid takes the fall.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he has earned his way to start next year and it's unfair, but I'm just saying that's if you're not moving on big pick from the big stuff, then that's your
right.
last choice.
It would be a pretty tough sell, regardless of how much you wanted to stay patient and or the continuity and all that stuff. Like bringing all three phases of this back next year, the quarterback, the front office, and the head coach, would be a pretty darn tough sell after the way this season has gone. Just in my opinion.
I mean, I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I'm here for it, along with like an Amy,
a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth,
explaining why. Yeah,
we're really encouraged by what we saw this year. 3-11 is one step away from.
Seven and 7. Yeah, you're fine. Whatever. Yeah, I mean it's a hard sell.
We love Will.
I hope we get an Amy.
I hope we do too.
Video presser, but I'm not holding my breath on that one.
Cameo, TikTok appearance,
a cameo.
Something. Yeah,
there we go.
I had cameo reference in a while.
We haven't.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Brian Callahan unwilling to commit to his starting quarterback for this week. Yesterday at his press conference, is the Will Levis era in Nashville over? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. More coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on the Titans on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We are live here on our 102.5 The Game studios. Brought to you by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical. Home of the $99 yearly BI membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Joe, people are mad on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Sometimes I look at area codes because when I read this, I'm like, oh, this might be a Levis family member. But this is, well, first of all, I'll read it. Sounds like you guys are having a great morning, knowing Will Levis's career at Tennessee is almost done. This is what Nashville wanted the whole time, ever since he's been drafted. Hell, I don't think anybody can play under this fan base the way he's been treated. And I said that's a bitter and inaccurate text. We're not jumping for joy, and this is not what Nashville wanted. Nashville wanted
good quarterback play.
Nashville wanted Billy Jeans to be the best QB in the league. So, I mean, that's just ridiculous. Then I looked at the area code. I'm like, is this like a Connecticut? Is this a family member? But it's 808, which is Hawaii. Is this Marcus Mariota?
Marcus.
Is this Marcus telling us that nobody can play under this fan base the way he's been treated? I mean, hey, man, I don't know. Do we have Rabel listening? Do we have Marcus listening? Who else do we have listening? Malarkey, are you out there? That's a silly. I mean, in all seriousness, the idea that nobody can play on this fan, it's the NFL. I mean,
Philadelphia's got nothing on these.
Yeah, exactly. Go to some other places. I think there's definitely more patience here. You know, the one thing with Levis that we talked about the whole time, we kind of had fun with it. I mean, there is some truth to it. Like, definitely like the Vols fan element of the Titans. Some Vols fan or just hated him, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Saw him suck, by the way, against the Vols in his last game, and just there was this because Levis is a guy who, if Levis were to ever become like as we've talked about also, like a great quarterback in this league, he'd be very hated by opposing fan bases.
Agreed.
The way, I mean, he's very intense out there and demonstrative and all that stuff. But nah, it's ridiculous. I mean, this fan base badly wants someone to work out, and Marcus, went into year 5. Now, Marcus goes into year 5 in part because Marcus played quarterback much better than Will Levis has at any point.
Yes. And
also because Marcus was the number 2 pick, right? I mean, that's another part of it too. I mean, when you they took his option year, went into the option year, and then we know what happened. But yeah, apparently this person says I'm in the Navy. Oh, that's a very convenient, Marcus.
Hope you're enjoying your time in Washington right
and
now.
Congrats on the big win Saturday.
Silver Mountain on Twitter, Joe, says this. Discuss this. Start working out Ryan Tannehill again. Resign immediately. Will Levis to the 3rd quarterback, Mason Rudolph to 2. Finish the season with a solution instead of guessing. Tannehill is a steadfast rudder with an offensive line that is better than the past. Will prove I'm correct in my assessment. Check me. This is from Silver Mountain on Twitter.
Yeah, that's pretty dumb. I mean,
Ryan,
if you're serious, it's pretty dumb.
I know that you haven't signed anywhere all year, that you are basically like in pseudo retirement at this point.
And it's Christmas shopping season, but come on up to Nashville.
Would you like to come back for a 3-11 football team and play 3 weeks of quarterback?
They really need to have 3 weeks of Ryan Tannehill quarterback. Everybody will feel a lot better about things,
Ryan, you're not doing anything, Ryan. So get out here and maybe you can be the quarterback next year too for a team that is not going to be anywhere close to in the Super Bowl.
I think my favorite part of that is like the offensive line's better. I mean, I'm sure Tannehill's watching the Titans this year thinking, I really wish I could stand in that pocket some more. The Tannehill thing is, by the way, it's just too bad for him. Again, a year ago, he's the call from Cleveland, right? They just never turned out to be a contender who had a need, which is the only way he's coming out. I wonder if he's going to just kick the can to another I'm not retired, but I'm here season. But it will not be, I promise you this, I will bet everything I own. Ryan Tannehill will not quarterback the Tennessee Titans ever again.
No, he will not.
That's a guarantee.
Nor will they ask him to do that, by the way.
Right. Like, yeah. That
ship has sailed.
Yes.
That ship has sailed. Now, he may come back at some point when, they're honoring Mike Vrabel out there for some reason. Vrabel gets into the Titans Ring of Honor or whatever it is.
God.
Maybe Tannehill gets in there too.
Maybe in seriousness, like Derrick Henry will be in there, so maybe he'll come back for that. Yeah. Gonna say, you putting Vrabel in the Ring of Honor?
I don't know. I'm just,
Wow.
You never know what can happen.
Just because he's listening, you don't want him to kick your ass?
I ain't afraid of Mike Vrabel.
Really?
No.
God, I am.
People have like they asked me one time, like, Shea Weber challenged you to a fight, would you do it? I was like, yeah, I'd do it. I'd lose. I'd do it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. I hope you don't have a glass jaw.
I'd do it. Just wouldn't go very well. I'd have to
do
know
it
that
too.
going into it.
I'd turtle.
Exactly. No, it's so Levis, a lot of interesting thoughts on this that are coming in on the YouTube chat and on the text line. It feels like it's over. It feels like Sunday's game was the final straw for Callahan and thus for, I guess, the organization. Now, one thing he did say yesterday that, like, if you do this, if you decide to move on from Levis and Rudolph's your quarterback moving forward here, like, is that a you decision or is that a decision that goes through ownership and with Rand Carthon? And his answer basically was, we talk about everything all the time, and it was something that he and Carthon would discuss.
He basically said we collaborate.
Yes,
he
basically
didn't say
is what
that
he said.
word, but he
Yes.
basically said we collaborate.
Basically collaborate is what he was alluding to there. So I don't think this is Brian Callahan just saying, hey guys, by the way, Will Levis is not your quarterback anymore. I'm making this decision. This is probably, my guess, Joe, been talked about at different points this season. And then Sunday's game after the benching in the middle of it was the final straw for Callahan. And if this happens the way I think it's going to this week and Rudolph's the quarterback moving forward, that will have been the final decision that they've come to as a group.
Right. And so I don't want to take it too far, but I do think that, as we talked about earlier, that was a lot of preparing people for it. And again, to me, a little bit of spin on why you would do it.
Yeah.
And I look at this too. Again, I believe, of course, Amy Adams-Strunk knows what's going on, has conversations with them. They all talk. Like, to me, this may never be spoken to them, to each other, by them to each other. But I also look at this like this is the change that's being signified for next year. Then the big changes other than that are not coming. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
I believe that's going to happen. I don't think I ever moved off 2.6%. I'm dropping that.
Are you?
I'm dropping it to 1.8%.
Oh, I'm keeping it exactly where it is.
What was yours, like 50-50?
It wasn't 50-50, but it was like 30-something.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's certainly possible, but this kind of, to me, adds up to the public, again, without saying it out loud, things are going to be different because we're getting a better quarterback. Have patience with everybody else. That's what I believe the message is.
I could see that for sure. I leave. There's 3 weeks left in the regular season, baby. I leave a lot of room for this ownership to start meddling and get in there and whatever they want to do, whatever she is feeling that day, going on by the seat of her pants, make a decision at that point, which we've seen it over the last few years.
That's fair. Maybe Rand should go get Tannehill. Save his job.
Need you to stabilize things here, Ryan.
3 wins in a row is all I need, buddy.
615-737-1025. So you bring that part of it up. I think that's an interesting segue into what we're going to talk about next. If they do this and Callahan has seen enough of Will Levis, how does that influence the decisions that Amy Adams-Strunk makes moving forward? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
these fans deserve a great team, and they deserve a championship brought to the city. And that's what we're going to work towards. And I'm prepared to make the hard decisions to hopefully get us there sooner. This team has a bright future. We have Rand. We have a promising young quarterback. I mean, the sky's the limit.
Oh boy,
It adds up.
how's less than a year ago, Joe? Optimism was high from Amy Adams Strunk. Looking forward to the future.
Did you just remute me?
No, Keezer's in there minding his own business.
I guess I must have double.
You turn
hit
into
my
PK,
button.
just taking some shots at him.
Well, I just that
You
was
don't take shots at my producer, isn't that right, Keezer?
Nope.
Yeah.
I have one hand on coffee, one hand on this audio. You think I had another tentacle that turned off your microphone? Nuh-uh.
I'm not sitting there watching you, man. It was just
Clearly,
weird.
you
I
thought
must
you
have-
were.
I must have double hit my mute. I'm sorry,
Boomer.
But hey, no, that's fine. Just get ready. You got a lot of PK coming for you this
Yeah,
week.
you
That's
do.
fine.
You better enjoy that.
Better get in there and stretch.
Yeah, when
Good
you
long
said, yeah, you said there was a lot of optimism. I thought you meant like around town. I'm like, I don't think there was a lot of, yeah, with her.
Oh, she was fired up.
She was projecting optimism there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting listen a year later.
We have Rand.
A lot of cap space. At some point in that, she's talking about cap space too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
right after that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cap space.
Yeah, like cap
Rand,
space, Rand,
cap
and a
space, Levis.
young promising
It's
quarterback.
not just you that I keep receipts on, Joe.
Ooh.
Good job.
Yep, not good. Not good. So if this goes the way I anticipate it going this week, Joe, then I guess we'll see. Wednesday. I guess there's a chance Callahan could get out there and say, Will Levis is the starting quarterback the rest of the year. I don't know if it would change my opinion too much on the way things are trending here, but let's operate under the assumption that he is not going to be the quarterback this week, and Mason Rudolph is. If Callahan is out on Levis, how does that influence the decisions that Amy Adams Strunk has to make at the end of the year? And look, maybe she's already made them. Maybe in her mind, it's pretty simple. And Callahan's coming back next year, and Carthon's coming back next year, and they're giving this one more kick at the can to try to figure things out. Now, I don't know that I'm necessarily in love with that idea if I'm a Titans fan. Like, you bring up the idea of finding another quarterback. Well, what happens if you find another quarterback in the draft and they're 5-12 next year? You firing Callahan and Carthon then, and then starting all over again with another coach and GM with this quarterback that they've in turn just selected? Like, that idea really doesn't sound all that appealing to me. But how do you think, if this is what I think it is, and Callahan is out on Levis, how does that influence what Amy Adams Strunk does after this year?
Yeah, well, so if you play it out from my prediction, expectation, which is basically, again, without the Titans putting up a billboard said it was more on the quarterback, it was mostly Levis's fault. Like, that's kind of going to be the subtle messaging. Okay. Now look, quarterback's very important, but I mean, there's a fair argument that no, actually, let's blame the coaching, or actually look at this team in the front office. But fine, if that's the way they're going to go, I also then think that it's more likely that the solution at quarterback is a veteran. Now, I don't know what that is, but a veteran and an attempt to spend more money and shore up certain things. And obviously you have to have a great draft and hope that, again, next year you get back to what the league is designed for all teams to be, at least, which is middling and still hanging on in a playoff race by this time in a season. I don't think that's not insanely impossible. It's just a question of who is the quarterback.
Right. But like if I'm Amy Adams Strunk, like, that makes sense from Carthon and Callahan's standpoint, because they're getting ready to be in job preservation mode, and they want to turn things around and start winning games next year. So I get that. But like, if I'm Amy Adams Strunk, the pathway to getting to what she just talked about in that clip we played, where you're competing for a championship, is not going out this offseason and bringing in Jameis Winston or Sam Darnold, or who, like Sam Darnold. Like, again, people keep bringing up Darnold. Like, I don't think he's going to be an option this offseason. Maybe he is, but I just don't think so. So, like, I don't know that the gap stop veteran quarterback, if I'm Amy Adams Strunk, is long-term what makes the most sense for you.
Well, but if there aren't any of these rookies that you like, then what's your alternative? You know what I mean?
What's the alternative? But like, what good does it do you if there are none of your rookies you like this year? You bring in a veteran quarterback and you go 7-10 next year. These guys save their job, and then you're not really in a position to draft a quarterback the year after that.
First of all, I don't know that 7-10 does save their job, but what I would say is, first of all, if you're Amy Adams Strunk, everybody wants a championship. You want to not be an embarrassment next year, okay?
Yes.
So if you're letting these guys keep their jobs, that means to me that you think that they're capable, in tandem with like Snead being on the field next year or whatever, things like that, but that they're capable of doing things other than quarterback to get your team to the point where it's not an embarrassment. That you must believe that. If that's the case and you have that team, then you are now, you're building a team around a quarterback. A stopgap to me makes sense if it's a good stopgap. That's the hard part.
That's when you run
into
into a problem.
But the idea of build the team up, let these guys do it, have a great draft, have a great free agency period, get some of your guys that right now don't look so good, better hope they look better next year, and then you have something set up for a stopgap, and then whenever at some point, but again, like then you get into now you're too good to draft high.
Right,
But it's if you're gonna go next year and you're gonna draft the rookie, you could be a Texans of 2 years ago, you could be a Commanders of this year, but you're probably not gonna be. You're probably gonna be bad.
Probably, but do you find the quarterback like that? Like if I'm Amy Adams Strunk, I think you have to know that until you find your quarterback, it doesn't matter what else you do. Like this idea that, well, build up the team and then get this stopgap in there. Like to me, the objective for the franchise right now is the same thing it was heading into this year, which is find your long-term answer at quarterback. Until you do that, like I don't really know, like you're not going to be in a spot where you're competing for a championship.
Yeah, but okay, but the best quarterback for this franchise since the McNair Super Bowl years was a stopgap guy you got for a 4th-round pick, right? You can go around the league right now and you can find stopgap or, obviously Goff is the prime example, quarterbacks who weren't your top 5 pick that turned into a great quarterback. You have to have a better football team too. Yes, of course, you're always trying to find the quarterback. But you also you have to. You're bad at a lot of spots. You're bad. So I think there's a lot of quarterbacks in this league. I've said it. I'll say it. I always bring up Goff. He would suck here this year. Okay, he's Goff, by the way, threw 5 picks and did not get benched. Just for the record, So there's an example of a QB who, the rest of the team seemed okay with him not losing his job when he threw 5 picks.
Yeah.
I just. Look, they're a bad spot. Like everything we talk about here, like there's no great answer. But I know that you have to do a lot to a lot of areas of this football team to be competitive.
It just feels like to me, as we sit here today, this is setting up for one of two things. Either you're drafting a rookie quarterback next year on a team that, when you're taking away a draft pick from another position in need, like a right tackle or a wide receiver, an edge rusher, and using it on quarterback, like how set up for success is the rookie quarterback going to be next year if you're doing that? Probably not very well. Like it's probably not going to go overly great in the first year. So then if you're keeping this group together, you keeping them next year when they go 5-12 again? Like are you that committed if you're Amy Adams Strunk to sticking with this and giving this thing a chance to go? And then the other option is, well, you don't draft a quarterback. You bring in some veteran guy. Hopefully things work out a little bit better for you, and you end up closer to the middle of the pack next year, and then you're still searching for a quarterback. Like none of those options sound very good to me if I'm a Titans fan right now.
Yeah, look, you have to get better at quarterback. So that's where it's like, first of all, what's even feasible? If nothing sounds good, if you can't like the Falcons are like, okay, we want to go to Penix next year.
Yeah.
Again, the Darnold thing, I'm with you. I think the Vikings would be crazy after what they're doing this year to just be like, hey, how about the rookie who was hurt all year? Let's just go to that. But yeah, like Jameis. I mean, Jameis is going to be a roller coaster with picks galore.
And
I
you
mean,
could do a trade, but does that make sense? Like, are you at the point with your franchise where you're giving away draft picks, whether it's a second round pick or even if it's like a fourth round pick? Like, are you to that point with your franchise where you're comfortable giving up draft picks for a veteran quarterback to come in here for a year or two?
Yeah, I mean, only if it's someone you really believe in, you think that you can win. And again, that's the problem. How quickly can you get good beyond that? It's a bad spot. But I do think that if you're going to go the rookie quarterback way, then you have to also be. You have to be. If your A-man is strong, well, I'm here for more pain next year. As long as I see other people you bring in that show progress that make me think we could be good at some point. But I'm here for the possibility of a bad record because we have a rookie.
Bottom line, I hear you. I think you probably have to be in for that if that's the way you decide to go. If you're Amy Adams Strunk, I can guarantee you this ain't what the plan was when you fired John Robinson and Mike Vrabel.
No,
it is not how you envision this going and working out.
9-29. I promise you, 9-29 that's probably the reverse of what was hoped.
Brandon on YouTube says the quarterback to save us from this nightmare is 2 years away. Arch Manning. Sign Jameis in the offseason and build around for your quarterback in 2026. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. People are excited about the 2026 QB class. Number one, I'd like to see Manning play a year of college football as a starter and then see what happens. But as multiple people have pointed out, like his entire family has stayed in college all 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a guarantee he's coming out.
So he's
in 2026.
So someone said yesterday they've already said he's staying until 27, right?
I haven't seen that either. Now, I'm not saying he hasn't said that, but I have not seen that.
I've watched him play. He's a great athlete. He's very talented. I mean, the fact that he's a Manning does not mean that he's actually going to be a worthwhile top 10 pick at any point in his life.
Right.
You have no idea.
He could be.
He's good. He's fast.
Yeah.
He's a good runner. Get a good arm.
Yep.
We'll see.
615-737-1025, our phone number. A lot of thoughts on this. We'll continue this discussion. If Brian Callahan is out on Levis, what does that mean for their future as a front office, as a coaching staff, and the future of the quarterback position? We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. It is bowl season, and the Game Nashville Sports Network, your home for college football bowl games and the college football playoffs, presented by Twin Peaks and Parma Tractor and Equipment. Today, tune in for the Frisco Bowl with Memphis taking on West Virginia on 94.9 The Fan. Kickoff at 8 o'clock. For a list of games carried on the Game Nashville Sports Network, visit thegamenashville.com/bowl games. Taking your thoughts on Will Levis, the quarterback position, Brian Callahan's view of the quarterback position moving forward. And if Callahan is out on Levis, what does it mean for decisions coming up this offseason for Amy Adams-Strong? Now, one thing I do want to make clear, Joe, like you don't have to have the first overall pick to find your quarterback of the future, right? Now, a lot of years, the Titans being in the spot they're in right now at 3-11, you could be trending very quickly towards having the first overall pick, the second overall pick, whatever it is. Unfortunately for the Titans, a lot of bad teams in the NFL this year, a lot of bad teams. And right now, I think they're picking sixth. Now, there's 3 more weeks left in the season. That could change. That could change for the positive. That could change for the negative, depending on how you view things moving forward here. But the bottom line is they're going to have a relatively high pick, whether that's 6th, 4th, 8th, whatever it ends up being at the end of this year. You don't have to have the first overall pick to find your franchise quarterback. I mean, the Ravens found Lamar Jackson, I think, at 32nd. Packers found Jordan Love in the 20s. And you could find examples all over the place. Having said that, it doesn't seem like it's a great year for the quarterback front on the drafting part of this, beyond maybe Shedeur Sanders, and people have question marks about him. Cam Ward, we've talked about, a lot of talent, a lot of ability, some questionable decisions at times. Like, all of these quarterbacks have flaws. Like, there's no can't miss, quote unquote, generational guy, I don't think, in this quarterback field this year.
No. Now, a lot of the can't miss generational guys aren't that anyway. So
look down south to Jacksonville.
Right. So, like, I could see Shedeur Sanders with his accuracy. There is the way he throws a football, and he's good at extending plays too. Not like a great runner, but he's good at extending plays. I mean, I could see him being special. I think that's possible. Cam Ward, I mean, like, if I had to attach my franchise to a quarterback, I'd go with him.
Yeah.
Because as much of a fun watch as Cam Ward is, and he is fun, you talk about what are you doing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to some extent, not unlike Levis in college, with like, holy crap throws. And then what? And look, sometimes you can get that out of a player, or sometimes they're so good they overcome it. Like, reverse Robin Hood, we always, cite your guy Brett Favre, but for the most part, that's a little bit of a tough sell. And then I don't know, everybody else, like
what is Milroe going to be in the NFL?
I mean, gosh, at times,
what is Carson Beck?
Boy, I mean, his stock has plummeted this year. Again, the one time I saw Carson Beck in person this year for about 2.5 quarters of football, he was the number 1 pick against the Vols of all things. I don't know what happened there, but all of a sudden it was like lasers all over the field. But most of the year, if you watch him, it hasn't been there. Now, he's gotten very poor support from his receivers this year, worth keeping in mind. But it's like if the Titans, draft him in the 2nd round, they go for something else, and then they're like, Carson Beck's there. It's like, wow, let's just repeat history, take another SEC quarterback that fell to the 2nd round and see how that works out.
Here's the other thing that's interesting about this, if I'm Amy Adams-Strong. And I don't know what the answer to this is, because I think sometimes we like to play a little revisionist history around here and say, well, the Levis pick was Vrabel. Like, Vrabel was the one that made the Levis pick. It's like, well, I'm not saying Vrabel didn't like Levis. I have no idea. I have no idea what Mike Vrabel thought about Levis in the draft process. But Rand Carthon was the general manager when they drafted Will Levis. So one thing I would love to know is, how involved was Carthon in making that decision? What was he going to be? He's like, Levis is our guy. Not only do we have to take him, we got to move up to go get him in the 2nd round. And like, if you're Amy Adams-Strong, knowing all these things that we don't know, like, how does that influence the way you view this regime picking the next quarterback? Yeah. That's always what I've thought about this. Like, you have to be, if you're Amy Adams-Strong, as you're making your decisions at the end of this season, the football itself has been horrible this year. And that's certainly a big part of this. To me, equally as big a part of this is you better be darn sure if you're keeping these guys around that these are the guys to make the right decision for you at quarterback moving forward. Because if you're not, that's not a good place to be as an owner.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, there's no doubt about that. And yeah, look, if anybody is trying now to it was Vrabel, that's bad spin. That's BS. I mean, I don't know exactly how all the discussions came down. We've talked about Charles' reporting on ownership driven. What does that mean? Look, I mean, the bottom line is if they loved Levis, they take him in the first round. So they took Skoronski instead. I think it was clearly a case of, well, Levis is there. We like him. We don't love him, but we like him.
Right.
So they go, and then how much of that draft was, that draft was, and this is on Amy, but that draft was Ryan Cowden as a lame duck, basically member of the staff running the draft board with, obviously Vrabel carved on this whole, let's collaborate, all this stuff. And, obviously there's always great stories about, a scout or, player personnel director, whatever, standing on a table for a guy. And then, there should be conversation and stuff. I mean, Blake Bedingfield is why the Titans got Derrick Henry. John Robinson was not going to do that at all. So that's good. But I think that draft was very much okay, everybody, let's all just put a name that you got to have a little bit more of a GM in charge, right? It doesn't mean it's not on Ray Carthon's record as GM. It is, but I'm just saying, I think that draft in particular was a weird draft for the Titans. But you're right. Amy Strunk, part of the thing here is, okay, well, if we're making this huge decision, do I trust these guys to do it? And I have no idea what the conclusion. I don't think she's moving on from them. But this is also why my prediction here is that there's a veteran QB before they ever get to the draft.
Could be. It very well could be. Which, again, I think I have my own problems with that too. But to your overall point is a good one of they're in a terrible spot. They're in a bad spot. It's just that's what this season has taught us. And it makes you wonder, when are they getting out of it? How close are they to getting out of this anytime soon? It's just not a very good spot to be in. 615-737-1025. We'll continue this discussion coming to next. We'll also get into a former Titans general manager potentially on the move at some point coming up here in the next few minutes. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. We're live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. The $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Brian Callahan not committing to Will Levis moving forward as starting quarterback this week. And as we discussed, Joe, kind of feels like he's out on Will Levis. We'll see. We'll see what decision he makes later this week and what that looks like. But it feels like that was a little bit of table setting yesterday for Mason Rudolph to be quarterback, which I know we're all really excited about to watch on Sunday. So Mason Rudolph-led Titans.
Get excited. What if we're wrong? What if this entire show is built on
could be
a bad premise?
I'm leaving the door open that I could be wrong.
I'm here for it, but I agree with you right now. It's hard to interpret that otherwise.
It is hard to interpret it otherwise. And look, even if it is Levis, these next 3 games, do we really believe it's going to be Levis next year? I said it earlier, like the idea of bringing all 3 of this stuff back with the front office, the coaching staff, and Levis as your quarterback next year. I mean, that's a real tough sell.
Tough sell in this
even
time.
for like the most positive of positive Titan fan, that one would be a tough sell, I think, to me.
Yeah, that'd be a very tough sell. But I'll tell you this though. This could be just a poll for Titans fans. What would you rather watch the last 3 games? Will Levis at quarterback or Mason Rudolph at quarterback? To me, it's still like I have no interest. I don't care what Mason Rudolph does.
Yeah.
I don't care. He's a backup quarterback, fine. And I'm not saying Will Levis is any better than that either, but I would easily pick Levis.
I would too, mainly because I don't really care to watch Mason Rudolph. Like, that's kind of my reasoning for it. But like, I think a lot of Titans fans' answers to that question right now would be, yeah, whatever quarterback will go lose the game. That's one I'll watch. And I don't know what the answer to that is.
Well, to me, I think then you're also picking Levis. Yeah. You're picking Levis because, again, no reason to watch Rudolph. You have a better chance of losing the games. And also, Levis is more interesting. He's more talented, so he makes some plays that are like, wow. And also, he's more likely to make the killer mistake.
He is. Rudolph does. I mean, I guess when you want to break it down,
Rudolph will throw some.
He'll throw some doozies as well. But like Levis,
godly picks.
Like Levis, I think gets the win for Miami, right? Because he started the game, even though it was Rudolph that came in and finished it.
Technically, right.
But they have won more games this year with Rudolph being the primary quarterback in those games than they have with Will Levis.
Right. I mean, the
2
best win that they had was Levis.
Yes.
Levis led. So, yeah, Chip from Mount Juliet says the season's gone. Let's see more of Levis. I mean, to me, I don't buy. I just don't. I don't buy that at this point at 3-11, there's some huge difference in how you're affecting a locker room with like accountability. I think that's a fair thing to talk. We did talk about earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, if this move is what we think is being telegraphed here, then I think it's a bigger picture of, moving on. And also, hey guys, again, I mean, I'm not saying Brian Callahan wants this message out there, but it is kind of the subtle message, which is if you really want to talk about why this season's so bad, you got to start here.
Yeah. And I said this yesterday too, though, like if you're Amy Adams Strunk right now, the reasoning for keeping this group together, and I'm referring to the front office and the coaching staff as a whole, it's hard to find many of them other than just continuity, right? Like that's your reason. Well, we believe in continuity. We've made a lot of changes around here the last couple of years, and we want to see this thing through, which is good, I guess, on premise. Like, to me, though, there's got to be more shown in the positive for you to just have continuity for the sake of continuity. And I don't think this group has done that. Like, they're 3-11. A lot of the moves that they've made this offseason have not worked out, which makes you question, okay, so what about this offseason? Are these moves that you make this offseason going to work out? I've not been impressed with Brian Callahan as coach. No, I'm not dooming him to just automatic failure either as a head coach, so I get that. But I'm just saying, it feels like if you're bringing this band back together with this front office and this coaching staff, what you're saying is, well, we know it hadn't been good. We know that there's really not very many positives to point to and speak of at all. I threw the question out there yesterday. If you're Callahan or if you're Carthon and Amy Adams Strunk asks you at the end of the year to explain why you should keep your job, I don't think the list of things you can point to is very long at that point. So this boils down to, well, we want to keep this thing going for the sake of continuity. And I guess my question is that a good enough reason to keep this thing going? Like, is as a Titans fan, is that something you're okay with? Well, we know it had been very good, but we've made a lot of changes around here, and we can't just keep making changes.
No,
like that.
I mean, if that's it, then no, that's not at all good enough. I mean, the reason you do is you think that they have done some good things and they have had some bad luck and took over a roster that was way nosediving because of the last guy who we'll talk about today. And you think they can do the job. That's why you do it. And I don't blame anybody who's saying, man, I don't see it. But
Speaking of tough
I
sells.
believe that's gonna be the case. But real quick, I have to. There's a lot of the text on is very much like, yes, Levis just would rather watch that. Yeah. Someone said they'd rather watch Stilly. But Gover says, what if they play Rudolph because he is the veteran QB they're going to choose instead of signing $45 million Darnold, Mayfield, etc. And I said, not sure if serious. If that's the choice, my goodness, are we going to have some excitement next year in Nashville, everybody? Get excited for the Tennessee Titans. Now, I know that there's one like Pittsburgh guy who always calls stations like, Mason Rudolph, I tell you what, he crackerjack court. No, he's not a starting quarterback. No.
I mean, if Mason Rudolph is your plan heading into the offseason, then it's time to clean house.
It is actually. I think that would actually trigger a very very obscure bylaw in which you could fire the owner.
Yeah.
So actually, maybe I'd like that to happen.
So Mason.
Oh, Gover's saying he was being sarcastic. All right, Gover. All right, very funny.
Well, but
you and Big Joe.
The point is, though, on that front, like, I hear you. The veteran quarterback could be the way they decide to go here. I'd just be very interested to see who that is. Like, who is the veteran quarterback that is realistically available that you can get that comes in here and makes a significant difference one way or the other, right? Like, as much as I joke about Jameis Winston, love me some Jameis Winston. Like, Jameis Winston is not coming in here and you're winning a bunch of football games. It's just not happening. Like, he'll have some games where he'll throw for a bunch of yards and he's going to throw about 20 interceptions if he's a starting quarterback the whole year.
Yeah, it's like, and it's like, okay, well, if you get one like that, first of all, well, I mean, obviously if you trade for someone, you trade for someone, but I mean, you need to be somewhat closer to being a winner to pay that kind of money to a quarterback, right? Like if you went and traded for Cousins in that contract, first of all, I'm sure he'd be thrilled. Oh, let me watch some film of that offensive line. Yeah. And Cousins, like Goff, is not mobile. If he doesn't have a clean pocket, it's not going to go well. So, how much can you overturn or turn over everything else to get it to the point where you could be competitive in one off season? You're going to have one hell of an offensive tackle in there somewhere ready to play.
Yeah.
At the least. Start there, and then there's a lot more after that.
No doubt. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. We'll get back in this conversation a little bit later. John Glennon will join us at 8 o'clock on the program today. Could a former Titans GM be on the move to the New York Jets? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. It is our 12 days of Christmas. I have a $100 gift card for a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa to give away, located at 9050 Carruthers Parkway in Franklin. You'll also be qualified to win the grand prize of a $1,000 Genesis Diamonds gift card as well. Be caller 5, 615-737-1025. 615-737-1025 will win the $100 gift cards for a Moment's Peace. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe Rexrode, the New York Jets set to interview former Titans general manager John Robinson. I believe they've already completed an interview with Thomas Dimitrov. They are scheduled to interview John Robinson, and apparently will also interview Louis Riddick from ESPN at some point.
He gets interviewed like every year, doesn't he?
He does. So I don't know exactly when the Riddick interview is coming. The New York Post put this out there that Robinson is scheduled to be interviewed at some point this week, and Riddick's interview could come later. But obviously they can't interview potential candidates on other teams right now with the season still underway, but you can interview guys that don't have jobs at the moment. So Robinson at least getting an interview with the New York Jets. What do you make of that? And what do you make of their potential interest in him? Should John Robinson have some interest in the New York Jets?
Well, I think that John, this is this time's out about right for John here. He's had going on, it's more than 2 years now of getting paid to not work by Amy Adams
Good
Strong.
for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I know maybe, he's basically been just out of it completely. But really interesting, does John Robinson actually get another chance? This is and it kind of relates to the Titans too, because to me, if you move on from this front office, okay, you can go do the same thing, which is the thing that most people do, which is go find the number 2 at the successful franchise, or the number 2 or the number 3, and give that person a job. But you just did that. Again, you not saying you can't do it again, but should the NFL give GMs second chances more like they give coaches? Coaches get second and third chances. Should more veteran GMs who have had success get opportunities in the NFL? So I'll be very interested to see how serious the Jets are about John Robinson. And John Robinson, again, I've got the draft history up right here, and this does affect Amy Adams Strong's decisions now. I mean, those last few drafts were devastating to the Titans.
Yeah.
So how much does that count against him? How much does that count for the new guys here? How much can he overcome that and get his own next job?
There's a couple things I wonder about on that. There's no doubt about it. We've gone through the record ad nauseum of what the Titans are since they fired John Robinson. It's awful. That does not exonerate John Robinson from some of the decisions that were made at the end of the time here, right? Like the first round picks were awful, his last 3. You traded A.J. Brown. So
there's that.
We've talked about this.
Kind of a big deal.
The idea of John Robinson getting fired at the end of the last season he was here, okay. We would have had a conversation about that with the way that things were going.
A fair thing to discuss.
So now doing it when she did it, we've talked about that. We don't need to revisit old history at this point.
Idiotic.
Now, so all that's on his record. His record in terms of win-loss as a GM, pretty darn good. It is what it is. They won division titles. They were in the playoffs, number 1 seed, all those things. But the way that ended is also a huge part of his resume. And if I'm the Jets, if I'm any other team interviewing John Robinson, I'm walking through that last part of his tenure here and be like, all right, well, what happened with these draft picks? Why in the world did you trade A.J. freaking Brown? The way it all, those are all huge concerns to me. I also wonder, and this is something with Vrabel too, if you're outside of this organization and outside of our bubble here, and you're looking at the Titans and everything that's gone on since they fired John Robinson and Mike Vrabel and how bad they are, how much does that help John Robinson and Mike Vrabel right now? If you're them looking for other jobs, and Vrabel's, I think, his own case, because I think he's going to get a job at some point. I'm not convinced that Robinson is, but we'll see. But how much, if you're the Jets or anybody else interviewing John Robinson right now, do you look at it and say, man, look at those Titans and the way that they're operating without him and how bad it is. Maybe he starts to look a little bit better by comparison at that point.
Well, Vrabel does. I think it's very different. Vrabel does because it's like, see, look, I mean, there's a terrible roster and it continues to be. I don't know that. I mean, I think with Robinson, again, these guys will be like, well, gee, Caleb Farley, Traylon Burks, Isaiah Wilson, Dylan Radins, on
sure.
and on and
Yeah.
on. This is the roster I inherited. So I don't know. I don't know that it helps Robinson a lot. The more it went, the more it helps him. But like right now, I mean, there are still absolutely after effects of Robinson's tenure that are affecting this roster. With Vrabel, though, I think for sure it's like, yeah, he left a roster that was nosediving, and look at it, it's even worse now. And yeah, and their coaching is worse, etc.
The thing is, though, I don't think the roster is worse now than it was his last year here.
Well, yeah, maybe not, but yeah,
I know what you're saying, but I'm just like.
So in other words, you think they've done a great job? Okay, put Robbie Stanley on the record.
Well, I'm sure that's what it is. Look, I'm just saying, like, distance from this organization, I think is doing Mike Vrabel some good. Like, I think people are, even if you were of the belief at the end of last season, and like, wow, Vrabel, last 2 years there didn't go so well. Now you're looking at what they trotted out there this year, and you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe Vrabel wasn't exactly the problem with this group. Robinson, I do think it is different. I'm just saying, like, there's still a lot of good to point to with Robinson in the first part of his tenure. And one thing that is mystifying about this league is the way that general managers who have been somewhere before and had like moderate levels of success, they don't often get another job, right? Like they don't often go get another general manager job, which is weird, but that's kind of the way it's been in the NFL. I wonder if that starts to change, and could Robinson be a beneficiary of that? Like, did Robinson do enough good things here to get that second opportunity? Because, I mean, he's basically been out of football the last 2 years. That's another part of this too. When we talked about that is like, how long can you stay out of it before people just kind of forget about you in that cycle?
Yeah. Well, and
at least he's getting an interview.
The thing with Robinson is, like, if I'm looking at hiring him, yeah, the A.J. Brown trade was disastrous, and that cost him his job more than anything. Someone on here is trying to say Amy traded A.J. Brown, not Robinson. That's not accurate. I mean, look, again, all these decisions, the owner doesn't find out. Oh, on Twitter, wait, you guys traded A.J.?
Yeah.
She's in the break room getting coffee on draft night. I mean,
Kind of felt like Vrabel found out that way, but yeah. Based on his video reaction.
I think he didn't think it was actually going to happen. But my bigger concern if I'm hiring Robinson is, man, at this point in your tenure, it's really good. And then in the last half, the drafting got real bad.
Yep.
Why? Why is that? What happened in your process? Because the COVID thing is one thing, and there was the Isaiah Wilson draft, but that's one draft. What happened after that? I guess it kind of affected the 21 draft too, but I mean, no. So let's take
2022.
So let's take a guy with incredible injury history.
Yeah.
Ed says, go get Joe Douglas. Excellent drafts, essentially forced into Aaron Rodgers, run out of town, deserves a second chance. So how about that?
Well,
swap Joe Douglas here and J-Rob with the Jets. There you go.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But to that point, like we talked about this when Joe Douglas got fired. Go look at his drafts. They're pretty darn good. Like now,
Yes.
Granted, they've been picking high a lot, so you ought to hit on some high draft picks at that point. But like the roster that he built was pretty good, and we know what the results have been. And ultimately, it's a results-based business. So, I mean, nothing that they did was good enough. I also give people, when you've been at that place, the New York Jets, I think we got to start grading that on a curve a little bit. Like, look at Sam Darnold, another good example of that.
Yeah.
Geno Smith.
But how much of the dysfunction, he was part of it in
Sure.
some way, hired the coach. So, like,
But it all starts with ownership. That's where everything starts
For
in this
sure.
league.
Yep. And obviously they got issues.
They do. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Cam to the program. Cam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, fellas. Yeah, so on the subject of continuity, I seen this. I don't remember if it was on XM radio or Facebook, but is it really continuity, or is it the fact that she owes so much money to previous coaches, previous general managers, that shaking it up again would just put her further down in debt as far as what she owes? She had the extension with John Robinson,
Yep.
Mike Vrabel. I mean, is it continuity, or is it, my God? Because She doesn't like to spend money anyways. And I understand this doesn't necessarily go against the cap or anything, which according to certain people on this radio station doesn't exist.
Well, that's stupid.
Yeah,
Keep going.
absolutely. It can be manipulated, but it's very real. But at the end of the day, is it continuity or is it, my God, I don't want to pay another general manager, another head coach, or another whatever Chad Brinker's position is?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, good call.
No,
Thanks,
for
Cam.
sure. We've talked about it, and of course that has to be factored into this. So, let's add to the list of my payroll of people who are out spending that money on the beach because they're not doing any work for me.
John Robinson gets hired and Vrabel gets hired. You're good this offseason.
That's true.
You don't have to pay him anymore.
No, she's like, go Jets, go Jets.
Call me as a reference.
There you go. This person is assuring me that Amy told this person she traded. It was her. It was all her call on.
Okay.
I know the back and forth on J-Rob and all that stuff with the agent, and so that's not true. But I love the idea that actually she fired him. She fired him after that Philly game because she was like, you should have traded him earlier. I wanted him out of here. Look at that guy, what he's doing to us.
John, those Philly fans were being mean to me. Yell at me in the owner's box. You're fired.
But good job trading AJ, which I actually did.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. John Glennon will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on Levis, the quarterback position for the Titans. All that ahead. Coming up next, big one on Saturday between Tennessee and Ohio State in the college football playoff. We'll begin to break that down. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The college football playoff underway this weekend. We'll get started Friday night. Little Indiana Notre Dame, which Joe Rexrode has the honor of witnessing in person.
I'll be there. Oh, I miss that stadium.
I bet you do.
Can't wait to see it again.
Bet you do. Tennessee taking on Ohio State Saturday night in the nightcap of the college football playoff in Columbus, Ohio. Don't know if you know this or not. Going to be cold in Columbus, Ohio. A lot of talking about that heading into this game on Saturday night.
Unlike tropical Knoxville.
Yes, Knoxville, just an absolute Caribbean paradise this time of year. So on paper, I think Ohio State about a touchdown favorite in this game. Obviously, they're at home. Now, it is going to be interesting to see, like, apparently it's a home game, but the college football playoff is like in charge of some of this. So there's going to be some, like, Tennessee gets like a hype video coming out, running onto the field, and then Ohio State does. And it's just kind of weird that way. Tennessee fans apparently buying up a lot of tickets for this one as well. So also interested to see what exactly the crowd breakdown looks like and how many Tennessee fans actually find their way into the Horseshoe coming up on Saturday night. But what do you make, just your general thoughts heading into this matchup for Tennessee and Ohio State? Obviously, the stakes are high for both teams, probably a little bit higher for Ohio State, given everything surrounding them in their program at this moment. But your thoughts on the matchup for Tennessee heading into the Shoe on Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, I'm most excited about this game of the four. And, first of all, the fan thing is fascinating. It's been everything you hoped on the Vol Twitter, Buckeye Twitter, whatever they call their Twitter. I mean, the Buckeye, they got some real goofballs too, man. I mean, the Buckeyes, man. Oh my goodness. So it's a great meeting of the minds on social media there.
It really is.
And there are indications here. In fact, I saw like Trey Wallace did something. I saw a tweet he had about like just basically the amount of tickets bought from states. And I want to say, I don't have it in front of me. I want to say it said like just from the state of Tennessee, 37% of the tickets. And from the state of Ohio, 34% of the tickets. Huh?
That's weird.
I don't know. Obviously, there's been some Vols fans who fooled some Ohio State fans getting their tickets from and things like that. But I mean, I can't wait to see what that looks like. And then the game itself, I look at it's a huge difference psychologically. I feel like the Buckeyes, it's like if the Buckeyes can win a national championship, well, all right, then we feel okay about you, Ryan Day. Yeah, good job. Okay. I mean,
anything short of that, they're like, get him out.
Yeah, I mean, like there's so much pressure and so much. I mean, that loss to Michigan is probably the worst loss in that rivalry's history for either side. Like now the difference being, luckily for Ohio State, there's a 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
So they get to still play. I mean, if it was the old way, that also knocks them out. And I mean, tell you what, that's all they'd be talking about is firing Ryan Day right now. That's all they'd be talking about.
Back in better times.
So, so then you flip it to the Vols, and I'm not saying Tennessee fans are going to be happy if they go out there and poop their pants and get beat by 17 points in this game, but it's a successful season. I don't know how you could say otherwise. It's a rising program. I think there's still a lot of hope that Nico, who I think has shown growth through the year, could turn into something special. And recruiting's going great. So I mean, it's like, it's not gravy, but it's very much, I think, a kind of just go out and see what you can do without a ton of pressure on anybody. That's hard to find even throughout this playoff. I mean, look at like a James Franklin and if he loses at home to SMU, and it's not going to be pretty. Texas lose at home to freaking Dabo, not going to be pretty, right?
Yep.
I think Tennessee has a real chance to win this game.
I think they do too. Like Tennessee is not as talented as Ohio State is. I don't think anybody would confuse that. I will say though, they do have either an advantage or close to a wash in a lot of important categories on paper heading into this. Like their defensive line, if their defensive line plays up to what they've looked like for the most part this year, has a chance to really wreck this game on Saturday. Now, having said that, Tennessee's defensive line, of the laundry list of things that went wrong for them in Georgia in the second half, their defensive line was a no-show. They did not affect the game at all, getting after Carson back in that game on the road. And I understand that the last time we saw this team play, they won a quote unquote road game to get into the college football playoff and did so in pretty impressive fashion. Now, it was Vanderbilt. There are a lot of Tennessee fans in there. Could be a lot of Tennessee fans in the shoe on Saturday night as well. But I still think the overall point remains of, like, if you're Josh Heupel and this staff, they have yet to go on the road and beat a really, really good team in a hostile environment. So can you do that on Saturday night? It's different. It's the college football playoff. Again, I mean, I just found that Trey Wallace tweet. He's talking to people from StubHub, and Tennessee fans have bought 37% of the tickets sold for the game.
People from Tennessee. So you don't know that it's
Right.
Tennessee fans, but
34% from Ohio. So either way, regardless of if it's 15,000 or if it's 40,000, there are going to be a lot of Tennessee fans in there on Saturday. There's still going to be a lot of Ohio State fans in there too. But can you go on the road in a hostile environment and win a game? But I like Tennessee's defensive front in this game. I think the cold weather actually kind of plays into Tennessee. They're going to want to run the ball, and Tennessee has been great at running the ball all year. So can you run it against this group? And this is one game where a part of their game that they started to get to in Vanderbilt that they've really not done a ton of this year, tempo. Like, I think this is a game where you got to utilize that if you're the Vols. And Ryan Day was talking about that, like trying to deal with that the other day at his press conference. And one part he brought up was like, it's one thing to practice it. It's another thing in the game when you're seeing it. And you got to be ready for that. Tennessee's really, I mean, they've gone fast. They've not been at like that hypersonic speed that they were with Hendon Hooker all year long.
yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, like that. That team so often was so fast. And I don't know that this team has that. I mean, I think
it looked more like it against Vanderbilt. They had more
they,
flashes of it against Vanderbilt. But to your point, it's not been a thing for most of this year.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think the more you can do that, and that's one of the most difficult things about playing them, to me, when they really get it rolling. And, look, I mean, the Buckeyes the Buckeyes, it's kind of like Georgia in a way in terms of, I don't think that they're afraid of Tennessee's receivers, and I think that with what they have in the back end, they got pros, in that secondary. I think they're going to press and be physical and play a lot of man, and that's opportunity. But also, I mean, that's as we've seen with Georgia, like they've been able to just have the physical advantage in too many spots to kind of neutralize that offense. I keep coming back, and with the weather too, I think we may be looking at a classic, grinder of a game. But that's okay. Tennessee can still win that game.
Well, but here's what I'll say. Like, even against Georgia, you've had a couple opportunities this year to hit on some passes that sometimes you've hit on and sometimes you missed. This is a game where when you get those one-on-one chances, and particularly when you get open down the field on those chances, you got to connect in these games.
You do
have to.
Yeah. And, and it's like, and they will absolutely, there will be some possible shots, who can complete that. To me, it's still like Dante Thornton is a guy who, you gotta make the pass. He's got to make the play, and
it looks like they're going to be completely healthy, by the way, heading into this. Now they've lost some, supplementary pieces in the portal. Like Nimrod's gone, Caleb Webb's gone. Those guys didn't play a lot anyway, so I don't know how much it's going to affect this game. But they have lost some pieces in the portal there. And then, quickly, Joe, on the other side of this, a lot of pressure on Will Howard in this game, Ohio State quarterback. Like, can he come through and deliver on some plays that will be there and available with this wide receiving core at Ohio State, which is really, really good. They're going to have some opportunities to hit some shots too in this game. Can Will Howard do it?
Yeah. And if he doesn't, that's where it all gets in. The Buckeye fans selling their tickets, not happy. If he doesn't do it, they're going to sit there and it's like, so Ryan Day traded in Kyle McCord for this guy. What are you doing, man? Yep. So there's a lot of, they can flip on, that stadium could flip on the Buckeyes Saturday. And then with the 30, 40,000 Vols fans will also, I mean, it's going to be an interesting scene.
No doubt about it. 615-737-1025. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Did you just remute me?
No, Keezer's in there minding his own business.
I guess I must have double.
You turned
hit
into
my
PK,
button.
just taking some shots at him.
Well, that
You'll
was
take shots at my producer, isn't that right, Keezer?
Nick is it's just like a more charismatic guy.
They know some weak rant is coming.
3 idiots in the front office are like coked up. Like, what kind of buzz are we talking about?
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Today's rant, I'd actually like to make an announcement to the people. For all of those who haven't heard, an announcement and a congratulations for those of you who have not heard. Jared Stillman and his girlfriend Lindsay have welcomed Jackson Reese Stillman to the world.
Yes.
Congratulations. Now, granted, this announcement comes a few days after young Jackson started preschool. My sources tell me he's big on finger painting and Gerber puffs and goldfish and Tennessee Titans football. I mean, seriously, how freaking long do we have to wait while we all know that you've had a kid for weeks and we can say it to the world? I mean, my baby gift to you is a razor and shaving cream for the kid, okay? How old was the kid before you told everybody? All right, but seriously.
Is he draft eligible next year for the Titans?
Yeah, it'll be Arch and Jackson. Arch thrown to Jackson. Titans, new stadium. It's going to be amazing. But
Jackson playing right tackle.
But seriously, congrats. I know Sally Reese. Sally was at a Christmas party with my wife, actually. I know talked a lot about how touched she was about Floyd being remembered like that. Of course, the middle name Reese, that's a big deal. And also Jackson, great name. That's my oldest first name. And for as much crap as I give Jared, I do think he'll be a great dad. And I think probably, Robby, what's going to happen here is like, how a lot of things skip generations.
Yeah.
It'll probably be hot taking. I've talked to Jared's dad, who, you believe me or not, I mean, he said, please give him more crap. Give him more crap. His dad is a very level-headed fan.
Oh, his dad's awesome.
And I think young Jackson is going to be the most level-headed, calm, reasoning, non-conspiracy theorizing Titans fan in Nashville.
Very
and I'm
slow
all
to
the way
speak.
here for it. Right. Well, let's get a little bit more information. I'm not sure yet. It's not nice to say that people suck if they make one mistake, et cetera, et cetera. I'm here for it. It's going to be fun. And I think, to me, we're all going on a journey now with, you're on the journey. You're into your journey as a dad. So you can give him some good, fresh advice. And now we get to kind of see Jared on this journey.
I'm interested to see how much this softens him up a little bit. I think it could
That
happen.
could be.
I think it could happen. I'm with you. Like, a lot of times these things do skip a generation. So Jackson could very well grow up to be is right tackle really that important? Do we really care about right tackle that much? This is what Jackson could say one day.
That's an interesting story, but I don't think we need to tell that story anymore.
I think Rand Carthon
Great
should
story.
get a couple more years. I think the Titans should be really
How
patient.
about a contract extension for them, perhaps?
No, it's really cool. I'm excited for Jared. I'm excited for just this journey that he and Lindsay are embarking on. It's cool to see. We've had some conversations about fatherhood and these things, and just it's really nice to see. Contrary to popular belief, we actually are friends with Jared, which I feel like I have to answer a question about like every week. It's like, so you and Joe, like, y'all just fight Jared all the time. Y'all hate Jared. I'm like, no, we're friends. Believe it or not, Joe and Jared actually like each other, even though.
So you hate him, right?
Most of the on-air appearances would suggest otherwise.
I got some good text here. Hate to break it to you, Joe, but Jackson's first word was, the cap is fake. Someone says, I hope he grows up to be a Ravens fan. Trevor says that. This one says, can't wait for him to come out and scream, the preschool football coach needs to be fired and the principal doesn't know what they're doing. Oh, Dylan says, I hope PK is listening to this. Not a rant. I ranted about how long it took us to be able to tell everybody Jared had a kid. That is a rant. Okay?
I hope PK is listening to this, because the more that PK gets after you about your rants, I think it's good stuff. I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Yeah, whatever, man. Bring it on, PK.
Do you want me to rant tomorrow to save you from his ire?
No, in fact, I actually, that's my thing now is going to be when he comes in, I'm going to do a very non-rant rant right in his face, and he can sit there and take it.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll be joined by John Glennon from the Nashville Post. Get his thoughts on the Titans, the impending quarterback decision for Brian Callahan this week as well. We'll get to that with Glennon coming up next. Preds fans, don't miss tomorrow night's Smashville Live show at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6 o'clock. See your Preds star players up close and personal. Your chance for autographs and pictures as well. The guests tomorrow will be Adam Wilsby and Kevin Gravel. That's tomorrow night at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. Talking some Titans and the future of the quarterback position. And to help us do that, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend John Glennon to the program from the Nashville Post. John, good morning. How are you?
I am well. How are you guys?
We are well.
Good.
Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So, John, let's just start right off the top here with Will Levis. He gets benched on Sunday. Callahan is asked yesterday about the plan at quarterback this week and basically says he's going to take the next 2 days to come to a decision on that front. Talks about how, players have to be held to the same standard. And I walked away yesterday, John, thinking to myself that the Will Levis era here in Nashville is done and that Callahan is out on him. Could be wrong, but that was the takeaway that I had. What about you? What did you make of Callahan's comments yesterday and what it means for the future of Will Levis?
Yeah, I did think it was an interesting tack, a different tack from earlier this season. When Will Levis was struggling, the party line was constantly, okay, we're going to work with him. We're going to give him the whole season to be evaluated. We want to see the full picture of Will Levis, give him time, so on and so forth. There was none of that. None of that, the company line from earlier in the season. It was, I'm going to take a couple of days. And honestly, I would agree with you. It sounded more like Mason Rudolph may well be the guy this Sunday than Will Levis. And, you have to think that Brian Callahan may be thinking a couple things. A, that the evaluation period of Will Levis is done at this point. I mean, he's seen him now for 11 starts. We haven't seen a lot of progress for Will Levis this year, in overall numbers. He may be willing to say, hey, maybe Mason Rudolph gives us a better. So we put him in there. There was certainly a different tone, I would say, from Brian Callahan yesterday than what we saw earlier in the season.
Okay, so you agree with us because the entire premise of this show is that he's getting everyone ready to tell them that Mason Rudolph will be the starter, which to me, John, is first of all, who wants to watch that crap? I mean, I don't. And second of all, I mean, to me,
crap, the Will Levis crap or the Mason Rudolph crap?
Well, look, man,
point.
I'll absolutely sign up for the Will Levis crap, which is you might have some awesome throws and some wow turnovers and just a wild time. And Mason Rudolph is just boring, but then he'll still throw a bad pick. And also, there's just what's the upside? Here's what I don't buy, okay? And he already started to say it because, you're absolutely right. The tone has changed. The narrative has changed. At 3-11 with 3 games left, I just don't buy this. Well, everyone should be judged the same way. This is I mean, everyone is just it's a death march to the end, and they're going to try to win, and these guys are going to be pros and all that stuff. I don't think that matters. I think this is about, like you said, John, they're done. And also, I do think that it's about a little bit of, next year when the coach and GM are back, the quarterback was really kind of the problem this year, folks. So now get excited because next year there's going to be a new quarterback. What say you?
Well, yeah, here's what I agree with you in the fact that I don't think there's a real downside of starting Will Levis for this Sunday or for the rest of the season. Obviously, there's no playoff situation you're worried about. Honestly, whether you win or lose doesn't make a big difference. And the chances are that Will Levis is going to be here next year, whether it's as a starter or as a backup, we don't know. But there are better odds of Will Levis being here, I think, certainly than Mason Rudolph, who's on a 1-year contract, who is a known quantity at this point. You're not looking for anything in Mason Rudolph. You pretty much know what you're getting in him. So I don't see any real advantage in starting Mason Rudolph. Why not give Will Levis that opportunity maybe to bounce back? He's got 3 more division opponents. Maybe he gives you something down the stretch to kind of make you think a little bit more during the off season. But, again, if you're Brian Callahan, maybe you're thinking of a couple things. A, maybe your evaluation is complete. And B, maybe Brian Callahan is thinking, hey, I need to win a game or so to make sure I'm completely safe come the off season. And maybe right now Mason Rudolph gives me that chance in the next game or two more so than Will Levis. So that may be entering in the picture as well, because I thought it was interesting, you know, all the talk about the locker room accountability. It makes sense, you know, that he's replaced other guys earlier in the season. Why not quarterback as well? But I'm a little suspicious, again, in the fact that we didn't hear much of that earlier in the season when Will Levis was struggling. So I think there's probably a little bit more going on than just that.
Exactly. It's spin zone time.
Well, and John, you bring it up. So, you know, knowing full well that this owner has done some wild stuff the last couple of years here, and you can never really predict what's going to happen. As we sit here today, this football team is 3-11, well below, you know, what anybody hoped that they would be this year. And now it looks like your quarterback is on the outs, and you're going to be looking for another one, be that a free agent, be that a draft pick this offseason. So how do you view the job status of Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan moving forward? Do you think both of them are safe heading into next year? What's kind of your view as we sit here today on that front?
I would think that they are both safe. You know, I would think in terms of Brian Callahan that when you bring in a head coach, you know, you want to commit to him for more than 1 year. That said, the year has clearly not gone well, you know, and I understand what Brian Callahan's message has been, you know, for the last few weeks in terms of, you know, the trusting in the process and seeing progress, even though there's not been the results. But there have to be results at some point. You know, you have to show the fans something. I think the fans are speaking very clearly by the fact that they haven't showed up at Nissan Stadium for weeks, by the obvious frustration. And you know, it's understandable. What have the Titans shown us this year? You know, 7 of the 11 losses by 10 or more points. Point differential right now is minus 125, which is tied for second worst. You're tied for second in the NFL in penalties, and you're tied 30th in the NFL with a minus 13 turnover ratio. Obviously, the 3-11 record is the bottom line too. So, as much as you want to say, you know, that this team is still giving its all, and I think it is. I think there's a lot of energy. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm, but there has to be more. So, you know, I think, you know, maybe even more so than say 3 weeks ago. I think there's probably more of a chance that Brian Callahan doesn't return next season. But I would overall picture, I would think that you try to commit to a first-time head coach for more than 1 year.
Well, what about just the idea of just the front office? They've had 2 years, and I know it's you know, different situations. You know, trying to work with Rabel last year, you know, and obviously, you know, they hired Callahan this year. What about the idea of just the front office being changed while they continue to let Callahan prove he's a good coach?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't see that either. I mean, I liked, and I think most people liked what Rand Carthon did last off season. You know, I mean, the Titans had a ton of money, and they spent the money, and what it appeared to be wisely spent as well. You know, they filled a lot of holes. They signed some good players. I mean, some of these guys have been hurt since then, but you know, I think he had this roster in pretty decent shape going to the offseason. I think this should be a better team than what it is right now. I think it should be at least a team that's kind of hovering around 500, opposed to you know, what the situation is now. And you know, I think you know, the drafts, you know, you can still say there's time that we still need to see what comes out of the draft. But I think some of the players have been pretty solid. Well, I think Rand Carthon, to me, I think is in better shape based on what he has done than what Brian Callahan has done this first year.
So to that front, you know, if quarterback is now on the table again for them to figure out this offseason, you know, sitting here today, John, knowing that things are going to change 1,000 times over between now and the first round of the NFL draft, like, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of great options for the Titans at quarterback. The free agent list is not very long. Everybody keeps bringing up Sam Darnold. I'll be convinced that he's not in Minnesota next year when I see it. So there's not a lot of great free agents. And then you look at the draft, and most of the draft experts aren't super high on quarterbacks in this year's draft. And right now the Titans are bad. Unfortunately for them, a lot of other bad teams in the NFL as well that also need quarterbacks. So how do you view, if this is it for Will Levis, how do you view kind of the obstacles now in front of them in search for the next quarterback?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing too. Is it's easy for for us in the media or fans or whoever to say, yeah, that's it. Will Levis, we're done with him. He's had his chance. It's not happening here. But you have to look at the alternatives and the options as well. And there, as you just referenced, there's not a buffet of quarterback options out there either. I think that free agent list at this point looks like it's going to begin and end with Sam Darnold, and as you say, certainly Minnesota will have the inside track on re-signing him after this year. And who else? You look at that free agent list. Justin Fields. I don't see him being a miracle worker in any case either. So it's a difficult situation because as happens every year, I think in the draft, you see some of the initial big board talent projections come out, and when you see those, the quarterbacks in the upcoming draft aren't necessarily right near the top. But what happens all the time is teams that are desperate for quarterbacks will move up and take those quarterbacks. So I don't think there's any guarantee that this crop, there's that one or two miracle workers that magically turn the season around. So then, do you look at trade, for somebody that's unproven? And if you're trading for somebody unproven, you're giving up draft capital to bring somebody in too. So it's an unenviable task, certainly for the Titans going forward. It's one thing to say, yep, Will Levis is done. See you later. He's had his chance. It's another thing to say, okay, who's next?
So it's going well. What we all would agree on. By the way, on the YouTube chat, Ed Henry says, wait, let me turn the volume up before Glennon gets on. I think your voice has been a perfectly fine booming level through this entire interview. Paul Kahar, the crap Paul Kaharski puts out there,
Thank you.
I mean, if you'd like to use this platform right now to rip him, please do.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're buying what Kowarski is selling, it's a you problem, not a me problem here. He likes to make up the occasional story too, and he likes to beat those false narratives to death. We know this about our beloved friend Paul Kowarski, so we just have to keep that in mind when he's chatting.
A very nice and gentle rip of Paul.
I enjoyed every
Professional,
second.
John.
John, great stuff, brother. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
John Glennon for the Nashville Post, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Lots to continue on this discussion as it relates to quarterback and Will Levis and what the Titans do moving forward. We'll get more into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. 1025 The Game and Cromwell Media have teamed up with the Nashville Predators for Coats for Kids, benefiting the Boys and Girls Club of Middle Tennessee. Donate a new or slightly used coat at the Game Studio or at the Fordyce Centers in Antioch, Bellevue, and Clarksville. Also, this Friday, the game will be at the Fordyce Center in Bellevue from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We'll take donations, give away some prizes, tickets to an upcoming Preds game as well. Coat donations will also be accepted at the Preds home game at Bridgestone Arena this Saturday against the Kings. For more information, visit thegamenashville.com/coat. Speaking of the Preds, we will have Preds Pick the Click later this hour. So be ready for that coming up at 8:45. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Brian Callahan addressing the media yesterday as it relates to the plan at quarterback moving forward this week. Will Levis benched on Sunday against who the heck they play Sunday? The Cincinnati Bengals is who they played. Lost by 10 points in that game. I did watch. I do remember. Will Levis to the bench. Brian Callahan asked about what the plan is at quarterback for this week. Here's what Callahan had to say yesterday at his press conference.
We'll go through your thought process and determine maybe where to go from here at the quarterback position and what kind of time frame do you think you'll.
Yeah, I think, I'm going to use the next 2 days to go through that process and make sure that, the decision we make is the best one for our football team, and not really much to add to it at this point. And that's something we can visit with later in the week. So take the time here that I have to go through it all and make sure, we're doing the right thing.
So Callahan unwilling to commit to a starter yesterday at his press conference, and then talked about kind of some standards on the football team that have to be upheld that have been exercised in other positions this year with the Titans on the team, and how that could affect the quarterback decision as he moves forward. Here's what Brian Callahan had to say on that front.
Do you feel the other guys in the locker room have lost confidence in Will being able to win?
And I don't feel that way right now. No, I don't think that that's the case. I just think that, when you make mistakes, plenty of guys on our roster throughout the course of the season have they're just held to a certain standard, and you want to make sure that standard is consistent enough across the board at all positions. So just got to make sure that that's the standard we follow, and that at the end of the day, if you're in position to make plays and you don't make them, or we have errors that cost us games, those all count the same. I think across the board. So those are the things that I have to look at to make sure that we're doing right by everybody involved.
So Joe Callahan spoke for a long time yesterday. Most of it was about Levis and the quarterback position and kind of the plan there moving forward. He didn't commit to anything, did not commit to Mason Rudolph being the starter this week, didn't say that Will Levis and his Titans career was done or anything like that. My takeaway from the press conference yesterday, Joe, was it felt to me like he is setting the table for Mason Rudolph to be the starter on Sunday against Indianapolis, and potentially for him to be the starter the rest of the season here. And it felt like to me that the Will Levis era here in Nashville as a starting quarterback is done. Your takeaway from what Brian Callahan had to say at his press conference yesterday?
I think the same thing. So everybody count on Wednesday the announcement that Will Levis starts the rest of the year, continues to be the starter. But no, these comments to me feel like setting the table. And I just the whole comparing it to other positions and things like that. I think that there's a little bit of spin here with that. And I think that there's a little bit of, I think that probably Brian Callahan has seen enough. That's my guess. And if he has, I can make the case I think that they should still start him the rest of this season. I would do that. I think that's what they should do. If there's not, like when we had Glennon on, Dennis text in the text line said, I do think if Callahan goes to the Rudolph, it's because he's worried about his job. It could be that too, like Glennon mentioned that too, like the idea of, if you need another win or two. But I do believe this is also discussed, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess to me, it's like if there's actual discussions, you would think that, I don't know. Does Amy Adams Strunk say, you guys, it's your job, you're the football people, I'm the owner of the team? Or is it like, we need to talk about this. This is a big, because if you do it now, how could you possibly say, but next year he's going to have another offseason and he's our guy. Yeah. Yay, Will Levis. I don't think you can.
I don't buy the job preservation stuff. Like maybe from his standpoint, he thinks that right now. But I guess my standpoint in this is trying to view it through the lens of Amy Adams Strunk. Say they put in Mason Rudolph and they win a couple games. What does that
now
change?
you feel
about
great
this
about
year?
yeah. What do you feel good about things?
What is winning a couple games here with Mason Rudolph as your quarterback against teams, by the way, that are not good in Indianapolis and Jacksonville? We'll see about what the Houston game looks like at the end of the year. But what does that change about what we've seen this year? Like I don't know. I think you talked about it being too late in terms of the holding the standard and making that kind of like the example of the locker room. And I agree with that. To me, it's also too late for well, did you see they won a game at the end of the year? So now we were going to fire Brian Callahan and we're not now because they won their 4th game of the year. Like we're past that.
Yeah, I don't think it's job preservation. Certainly, you'd rather win than lose. You want to show, hey, they were 3-11. Things are going terrible still. These guys worked all week and they showed up and they won. What that has to say something, right? I mean, sure, you'd much rather have that than not. But I don't think but that's separate from the quarterback thing too, right? So, and again, I'm assuming it was a pretty big decision if they go with Rudolph here. And I know that it'll be accompanied with Brian Callahan saying, this isn't the end. This is not, that's fine. You can say that.
But it is.
But we all know what it is. And again, I believe if this is the way it goes, that it's at least a subtweet, a subtle comment that, of all the things this season, if the quarterback play were better, this could have been a different kind of season. So that's what's going to be fixed. That's what's going to change. And that's how things are going to get better.
Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Trey to the program. Trey, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing this morning?
We're good, man.
Good, Trey.
Hey, I just want to say, just from my opinion, from the presser yesterday, he left it open because he was saying that he wasn't going to commit to him, but then he was saying, oh, it was a bad game. Everybody has a bad game. So I think he's on the fence on it, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him playing next Sunday. And y'all have a good day. Thank y'all.
Yep, thanks, Trey. Appreciate it. I mean, look, he could get up there on Wednesday and say, we're going with Will Levis on Sunday. He's going to start the rest of the year. I mean, I'm not totally closing the door for that being a possibility. Number one, that's not the takeaway that I had from the press conference yesterday. And number two, even if that's the case, I don't know that changes the long-term discussion, like for the quarterback discussion for next year either. Like it's going to be hard, I think, for Will Levis to overcome this at this point and be the starting quarterback next year. Like I've said it a couple times on the show today, and I'll stand by it. You're going to have a tough time selling to your fan base Carthon, Callahan, and Levis all coming back in the same role next year. Like I don't think you can do that if you're Amy Adams Strunk right now. So quarterback could be the one paying the price.
Glennon likes what the front office has done.
I noticed
some
that.
good stuff. Hey, look, with this franchise, you tell me that on Wednesday, Amy and Rand, they all show up and they announced a 5-year extension for Levis for $60 million. Yeah, sure, I believe that too. I mean, who knows? I got this texter. I'm going to read one of your texts because you are just blowing up the text line. I mean, which one do I pick here? The last one. Callahan is scapegoating Levis, and it's honestly disgusting. Levis stinks, but Callahan stinks more. Some people are convinced it's the coaching this year. Again, why didn't he develop or improve a young QB with every physical tool imaginable? You can go front office, you can go coach, you can go quarterback. Pick a path.
It's all on the table, man.
You got great arguments with all of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's all on the table, which I think makes the future just really difficult to dig your way into something positive as they look ahead here. 615-737-1025. We'll continue the discussions. Oh, if Brian Callahan is done with Will Levis, what does that mean? What does that mean for his future? What does that mean for Rand Carthon's future? The future of the quarterback position here for the Titans? We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is from Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Hendersonville. Brewster's offers handcrafted cakes, pies, and ice cream flavors of peppermint Oreo, eggnog, and gingerbread man. Enjoy the magic of homemade happiness this season. Visit thegamenashville.com/deals and get half off a $50 gift card to Brewster's while supplies last. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, if our deductive reasoning of what we thought we heard yesterday from Brian Callahan's press conference is accurate, and he comes out this week and says Mason Rudolph is the starting quarterback, and he's going to start on Sunday against Indianapolis, or says he's going to start the rest of the year, whatever the case is, and the Will Levis era is quote-unquote over here in Nashville. What does that mean? What does that mean for the future of the front office, the future for Callahan, the future of the quarterback position? On one hand, you could bring the front office and Callahan back next year and trust them to find the solution at quarterback, be that in the draft, be that in free agency. On the other hand, if you're Amy Adams-Strunk, you could look at it and say, I want brand new everything. I want a new general manager. I want a new head coach and a new quarterback all coming in at the same time. You could go that route. And then, there's offshoots of that. You could get rid of the front office, keep Callahan, and go through that song and dance too, if you wanted to at quarterback. I'm really interested to see what this looks like. We brought up different possibilities. None of them sound that great to me if I'm a Titans fan. Like right now, you're picking 6th overall in the draft. Could you find a quarterback at 6th overall? Sure. Of course you could. Depending on who you ask, not very high reviews for this quarterback class coming into the fold. Now, that doesn't mean that one of them is not going to end up being a great player in the NFL. So maybe that's your guy. Maybe that's who you select this year. The free agent market. There's Sam Darnold. I asked Titans fans yesterday on Twitter. I threw it out there. So if you're done with Levis, what's your realistic option? A lot of Darnold coming back the other way. Is Darnold realistic? I guess until he has his next contract, we can discuss it. But I would just be stunned at this point if he's not a member of the Minnesota Vikings next year, or at least if they don't tag him and then do something with him after that.
Yeah.
So,
no.
I just don't feel like that's going to be a realistic option for you this offseason. So if it's
what
not
if they
Darnold,
don't? He's picking here.
That's the other thing. Like, you coming to this? So
Not getting Darnold.
if it's not Darnold, go look at the other options at free agency. They're not good. I mean, they're not good at all. So what do you do at quarterback here if you're the Titans, if you're out on Levis and you're keeping the rest of this group intact, be that the front office and the coaching staff? What is the next step at quarterback? And if you're Amy Adams-Strunk, do you trust this current administration to find and select your next quarterback?
All good questions. There is one scenario here for Levis, which would probably be his best bet, which is the young QB scenario, because even though I'm with you, if we hear tomorrow, it would be tomorrow, right? Is it tomorrow when the answer is going to come? I've been saying a couple days, but I think it would be tomorrow because I've been thinking it's Monday, but it's not. It's Tuesday. So if it turns out that it's Rudolph, then I agree. It's over for Levis as the guy that they're trying to figure out if he can be the franchise quarterback. It doesn't mean he's off the roster. And I would actually probably guess that if they do the draft thing, that he's probably, I guess competition could be in camp, or it could even be like, well, Will's a starter, and then we'll bring and then Shador we'll give him time. And then at some point, inevitably next season, he probably gets replaced, but at least that would be an opportunity to be a placeholder starter and keep proving that he can play. And that's probably his best case. But yeah, look, if they do go the veteran route, which is what I would guess, I would guess Levis is bounced. I would guess everybody's coming back, front office coaching. Maybe not Cole Anderson, but you know what I mean? The big names. And then I would guess an attempt to bring in a veteran, more of a placeholder, and try to be good as quickly as possible. But like you said, what are your great options there? The Cousins, a lot of people are going to talk about Kirk Cousins after this year because it hasn't gone well. They did draft Michael Penix, but they signed him to a big deal. And I just, to me, if you're the Titans, any team that has offensive line issues, he's that type of quarterback that it just doesn't work. He's immobile. So I think, but I can't come up with a better one than him because Darnold, I'm with you. It's just not realistic.
I mean, look, is Atlanta gonna cut him and take that dead cap hit?
Probably not. I think
you're gonna trade for him.
I think they would need to. I think they would try to trade for him and get something back for all that money that they would be eating. So
you gonna go pay Kirk Cousins that money after the year he's had?
Yeah, it's a tough sell. I probably not. But I mean, like again, I would rather if I'm trying to win, he is a good quarterback.
Yeah,
it's better option than like a Jameis or who else. There's talk about like the Rams being ready to move on from Stafford. I mean, there's always something in an offseason.
They're getting ready to win the division.
Yeah. But there's always something that comes up kind of as a surprise. I mean, like Russ this year in Pittsburgh is a surprise. I know some people say Justin Fields. I don't think you're winning enough with him.
No,
it's again, we keep circling back to, man, they're in a tough spot here, aren't they?
They are. Let's head back to our 1025 The Game phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Jim in Mount Juliet. Jim, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning. Hey, guys, realistically, what kind of a QB are you going to get, veteran coming to the team, when he looks at the offensive line and sees right side is just getting steamrolled? Do you have to first bolster your line before you're going to get a QB of any kind of quality? I'll listen. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Jim. I mean, to your point on that, like Darnold, let's say Darnold gets the free agency and Minnesota says, you know what, Sam, thanks for the great year. We did draft J.J. McCarthy in the first round last year. Good luck in free agency, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's say that does. And he's looking at his options, and this is one of those options. Like, are you
last on the list?
Like, yeah, like what?
I mean, that's what it is.
Why would you come here? Like, what is set up for you right now with this group to come? And look, you can sell yourself a plan, right? Like if you're keeping this front office intact and you're trying to make a pitch to one of these quarterbacks, it's like, well, yeah, we're going to address right tackle and free agency and or the draft, and we're going to get you another wide receiver in here in the draft, and we're gonna go spend money and bring in an edge rusher on the defensive side of the ball. Like, we're going to be a better team. Like, you could sell that.
I mean, you'll be signing people at the time, like, hey, look at this, who we just signed.
Exactly. I mean, the roster is going to change between now and that point when it comes time to make a quarterback. So you can sell it. I just think, given the track record of how it's gone around here the last couple of years, it's all going to be a tough sell to these veteran guys.
Yeah. Look, I will say, no, for sure. I mean, like, who would be, if that were to happen, which I just can't believe the Vikings would be that dumb, because he's played really well. And yeah, someone on the text like, well, he needs good people around him to be good. Fine. If you demonstrate that you can play well with good people around you, well, then some people talk about you like you're an MVP candidate like Jared Goff. I mean, who cares if it's because there's a good team? That's the whole idea, to have a good team.
Yeah.
Most people don't have Patrick Mahomes and won't have Patrick Mahomes. So that's good. But who would be in the market for, Darnold, who would be more attractive than the Titans? I mean, anybody who would be in the market for a free agent. I mean, obviously the Raiders may not be more attractive.
Well, I mean, the Raiders, the Giants are going to be in the quarterback market. I have no idea about Carolina. Like, Bryce Young's playing better. The Saints are going to be in the quarterback market. Who knows with the Jets? Now, I don't know if the Jets are going back down the Darnold realm, and I don't know if Darnold's going to entertain that.
But Rodgers can come here.
What are the Browns doing? Well. Like, you still have that enormous contract to Watson. Like, there are plenty of teams out there that are going to be in the quarterback discussion. Like, one thing that's going to be interesting, and we've heard Charles bring this up several times on our show. Like, is San Francisco getting ready to just dole out a ton of money to Brock Purdy? They're going to pay Brock Purdy $60 million a year? I don't know.
I think they are, but yeah, but not for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be options out there if he makes it free agency.
Yeah, so that's just a pipe dream again, even him being available. I will say, of all the options, I don't think Justin Fields is going to, and I was huge on him coming out. I've been very disappointed. I was like, man, the Bears actually did a smart thing in the draft. It hasn't worked out. You saw what happened in Pittsburgh this year. It's just, they're winning, but they're a great D. And then Russ comes in, it's like, oh, wow, they look like they have an offense now, right?
Yeah.
I will say that, like, that as a possibility is not the worst thing to me. At least he's young, and you hope that a few things can get a lot better and click into place for him. It's certainly, to me,
they can run away from the pressure a little bit when the offensive line collapses.
I mean, absolutely. Like, it's of all the possibilities out there, I might put that as good as anything, which again comes back to, man, you're in a tough spot. Unless there's just something that we're not thinking of that they might be able
Well,
to
and
pull
again,
off.
like long term, I understand if you're Amy Armstrong. There's been a ton of losing that's going on around here, and you're trying to get yourself out of the bottom of the NFL dregs. But like, does it really serve your long term purpose as a franchise well to say, all right, we're keeping everything together, and we're going to go get Justin Fields as our quarterback next year, and we're going to go 7-10, where we get a little bit better, we're a little bit more competitive, but now we're not in position to draft like that next quarterback that you're at. Like, does that really serve your interest all that much if you're Amy Adams Strunk right now? I can make the argument that it does not. So, to your point, not great options all the way around for the Tennessee Titans.
No, yeah. It's like a lot of the question, once we get past the question of who's coming back and who's not, a lot of the question is, how important is it next year to be okay? As opposed to how important is it to find the next quarterback and be willing to, with this franchise that is now 9-29 its last 38 games, continue that for a while longer.
Right, exactly. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Pred's Pick to Click coming up next. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025. If you guess a goal scorer for the Preds tonight, you'll win a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. We'll do that coming up next. Take your final thoughts on the Titans as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game.
It's time for Pred's Picks to click.
And a shot at the score.
Do you think you know who will score a goal in tonight's Predators game?
Little give and go.
Shoot your shot for a chance to win Pred's tickets. Call 615-737-1025 now. It's Pick to Click, now on Robby and Rexrode.
It is time for Pred's Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode. Pred's in action tonight, taking on the New York Rangers. Peter Laviolette in town. Puck drop at 7 o'clock, pregame 6 o'clock here on 102.5, 106.3 the game. The standings in the competition. Rexrode still in first place with 5 correct answers. I am in second with 3. The listeners and Nick Keys are tied at 2 correct answers apiece. With that in mind, we head back to our 102.5 the game phone line. Welcome in Kevin to the program. Kevin, thanks for calling in. Who is your pick to click tonight for the Nashville Predators?
Let's go with Steven Stamkos.
Going with Steven Stamkos. Kevin, thanks for the call. Stamkos playing well lately. That top line starting to generate some looks offensively. We'll see if he can score tonight. Stamkos off the board. Nick Keyser, your pick to click for the Nashville Predators.
I'm going to go with Jonathan Marchessault. I think he's going to look good, and that all-forward power play might get the job done a couple of times this evening.
Preds need Philip Forsberg to find the back of the net. Hadn't done it a whole lot lately. He does it tonight. I'm going Forsberg. Stamkos, Marchessault, Forsberg, Rexrode, your pick to click.
How about a guy who scored for the first time in forever? Maybe a little heater coming. Luke Evangelista. Luke Evangelista.
Nice goal that he had the other night.
Yeah.
As well. Stamkos, Marchessault, Forsberg, Evangelista. The selections in Pred's pick to click. Pred's in action tonight against the New York Rangers. Joe, final thoughts on the quarterback part of this for the Tennessee Titans. One name we did not mention that others have brought up, which, okay, Daniel Jones as a potential answer at quarterback for the Titans. Your thoughts on that for next season?
Yeah, actually, that's probably a little bit better option than Justin Fields. I'd be more excited to watch Justin Fields than Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones has had a good season. You read the stats; they weren't overwhelming, but he was good that year. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, Brian Daboll! Look at how he can develop quarterbacks." He won a playoff game in Minnesota at the expense of Kirk Cousins. And then it's been not very good since then. And he didn't look very good as a scout team safety either, but
he did not.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's got to be a name that's mentioned. There you go, folks. Get excited.
Last 2 seasons.
Chase came in here and threw out Mac Jones. I would throw that out.
I don't
throw
really,
that fish back in the water.
Either one of the Joneses you can keep. I don't have much interest in watching a Daniel or Mac Jones play football for this team. That's me. Maybe they feel a little bit differently. I mean, Daniel Jones the last 2 years. In 23, he played 6 games, threw for 909 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 6 picks. And then this year, 10 games, threw for 2,070 yards, 8 touchdowns, 7 picks, with a completion percentage of 63.3. You can have that. 6.1 yards per attempt, by the way.
Yeah, not great. Caleb says this has been a little bit on the text line today, as I have not kept up well. I need your help, Robbie. Please help me. Just trade.
I'm locked out, so we're gonna
you've been banned from the text line. Yeah. Caleb says just trade for Hendon Hooker. Now, look, I tried to make this trade early in the year.
Did.
Well, Harold Landry, who, by the way,
has completely fallen off the cliff.
Kind of faded. He might be doing more with a team that, boy, do they desperately need anyone who can play any defense for him. And then you could have gotten him back. But, hey, didn't happen. That one is, I mean, seriously, I absolutely still believe in him as an NFL starting quarterback someday. I also think the Lions do. And so what would you have to give up? I mean, I think they like the idea of keeping him and having him ready and kind of doing a Packers kind of thing with him when Goff is ready to fade out. So I don't know if you're going to be able to pull that off. You're probably going to have to offer up something hard to resist.
Can Malik
what
play?
That would be, I don't know.
Can Malik play? Go get Malik, bring him back.
Yeah, can the Packers just send him back? Just do-over? Can you have a do-over? Send back Malik.
What would it take to get him? I mean, he's won 2.5 games for him this year.
I mean,
started 2 of them, won, and then basically played the entire second half against the Jacksonville team earlier this year and made some big plays in that one too.
He did.
He's basically won 3 games for Green Bay.
6-rounder.
Okay.
It's going to take more than that.
Another name that we have not but we have previously, but it is worth talking about is Jake Browning. Jake Browning is a guy who was with Callahan, is in Cincy, was with Callahan there, did very well last year. Does Callahan believe in him enough to be like he could come in here and win and everything could look better?
Maybe.
What would it take to get him?
I mean, Jake Browning,
he was good last year.
Completed 70% of his passes. He threw for 12 touchdowns, 7 picks. Like, he was fine.
He was surprisingly good, I would say.
Yeah.
Does that mean he's
had
a
Jamar
good
Chase
starting
and
quarterback?
T. Higgins.
Yeah, exactly.
You ain't got that here.
No.
So what does that mean for Jake Browning? I don't know what the answer to that is. Like, maybe Callahan loves him. It was like, maybe that's their plan. I have no idea.
Could be.
Is Jake
Get
Browning
excited.
Is that your long-term plan at quarterback? I don't know.
Maybe he just needs an opportunity.
Maybe so. Look, I'm not opposed to that. If Callahan believes he can do it, there are worse options out there, I think.
He certainly knows him as a player.
He does.
So if he says he's excited about Jake Browning like he said he was about Will Levis, he actually has time spent with him that you could put into those words.
Yep. That also, looking back on it, doesn't sound great right now.
A lot of preseason comments that look awfully
a lot of positivity going on. That does it for us today here on the program. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Chasing Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.